Hey, what is up, everybody? I am here to give you my Read Aloud series for The Adventures of Tom Sawyer. If you want to check out chapters 1 through 10, make sure to click up on that playlist right up here that I finally remembered to make. I didn't think I was ever going to remember to make it, but I did. Sorry it took me so long to get this series up, but I just been busy the past few weeks, and obviously everybody knows my computer finally went, so that's why it took me so long to finally get going with this. But I'm going to try to upload a lot of them today. I'm going to upload 4 of them today, so this is going to be the first of 4. So let's just get right into this Read Aloud series. This chapter is called Tom's Conscious at Work, and it starts on page 85 and ends on page 89, so it's only like 4 pages, so this isn't even that long. Close upon the hour of noon, the whole village was suddenly electrified with the ghastly news. No need of the as yet undreamed of telegraph. The tale flew from man to man, from group to group, from house to house, with little less than telegraphic speed. Of course the schoolmaster gave holiday for that afternoon. The town would have thought strangely of him if he had not. A gory knife had been found close to the murdered man, and it had been recognized by somebody as belonging to Muff Potter. So the story ran, and it was said that a belated citizen had come upon Potter washing himself in the branch upon 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, and that Potter had at once sneaked off. Suspicious circumstances, especially the washing, which was not a habit with Potter. It was also said that the town had been ransacked for this murder. This is in parentheses now. The public are not slow in the matter of sifting evidence and arriving at a verdict. And then the parentheses close. But that he could not be found. Horsemen had departed down all the roads in every direction, and the sheriff was confident that he would be captured before night. All the town was drifting toward the graveyard. Tom's heartbreak vanished, and he joined the procession. Not because he would, not 1,000 times rather go anywhere else, but because an awful, unaccountable fascination drew him on. Arrived at the dreadful place, he wormed his small body through the crowd and saw the dismal spectacle. It seemed to him an age since he was there before. Somebody punched his arm. He turned and his eyes met Huckleberry's. Then both looked elsewhere at once and wondered if anybody had noticed anything in their mutual glance, but everybody was talking and intent upon the grisly spectacle before them. Poor fellow, poor young fellow, this ought to be a lesson to grave robbers. Muff Potter, Muff Potter, Muff Potter, hang up for this if they catch him. This was the drift of remark, and the minister said it was a judgment. His hand is here. Now Tom shivered from head to heel, for his eye fell upon the stolid face of Injun Joe. At this moment the crowd began to sway and struggle, and voices shouted, "It's him! It's him! He's coming himself!" Who? From 20 voices. Muff Potter. Hallo! He stopped. Look out! He's turning! Don't let him get away! People in the branches of the trees over Tom's head said he wasn't trying to get away. He only looked doubtful and perplexed. Infernal impudence, said a bystander. Wanted to come and take a quiet look at his work. I reckon didn't expect any company. The crowd fell apart now, and the sheriff came through ostentatiously leading Potter by the arm. The poor fellow's face was haggard, and his eyes showed the fear that was upon him. When he stood before the murdered man, he shook as if with a paisley, and he said, and he put his face in his hands and burst into tears. "I didn't do it, friends," he sobbed. "'Pon my word and honor, I never done it." "Who's accused you?" shouted a voice. This shot seemed to carry him home. Potter lifted his face and looked around him with a pathetic hopelessness in his eyes. He saw Injun Joe and exclaimed, "Oh, Injun Joe, you promised me you'd never. Is that your knife?" And it was thrust before him by the sheriff. Potter would have fallen if they had not caught him and eased him to the ground. Then he said, "Something told me if I didn't come back and get." He shuddered, then waved his nervousless hand with a vanquished gesture and said, "Tell him, Joe, tell him. It ain't any us any more." Then Huckleberry and Tom stood dumb and staring and had the stony-hearted liar reel off his serene statement. They expected every moment that the clear sky would deliver God's lightning upon his head and wondering to see how long the stroke was delayed. And when he finished and still stood alive and whole, their wavering impulse to break their oath and save the poor betrayed prisoner's life faded and vanished away, for plainly this miscreant had sold himself to Satan, and it would be fatal to meddle with the property of such a power at that. "Why didn't you leave? Why did you want to come here for?" "What did you want to come here for?" somebody said. "I couldn't help it, I couldn't help it," Potter moaned. "I wanted to run away, but I couldn't seem to come anywhere but here," and he fell to sobbing again. Injun Joe repeated his statement just as calmly a few minutes afterward on the inquest under oath, and the boys, seeing that the lightnings were still withheld, were confirmed in their belief that Joe had sold himself to the devil. He was now become to them the most delightful, interesting object they had ever looked upon, and they could not take their fascinated eyes from his face. They inwardly resolved to watch him nights when opportunity should offer, in the hope of getting a glimpse of his dread master. Injun Joe held to raise the body of the murdered man and put it in a wagon for removal, and it was whispered through the shuddering crowd that the wound bled a little. The boys thought that his happy circumstance would turn suspicion in the right direction, but they were disappointed, for more than one villager remarked, "It was within 3 feet of Muff Potter when it done it." Tom's fearful secret and gnawing conscience disturbed his sleep for as much as a week after this, and at breakfast one morning Sid said, "Tom, you pitch around and talk in your sleep so much that you keep me awake about half the time." Tom blanched and dropped his eyes. "It's a bad sign," said Aunt Molly gravely. What you got on your mind, Tom?" "Nothing, nothing I know of." But the boy's hand shook so that he spilled his coffee. "And you do talk such stuff," Sid said. "Last night you said it's blood, it's blood. That's what it is. You said that over and over. And you said, 'Don't torment me so. I'll tell.' Tell what? What is your tell?" Everything was swimming before Tom. There was no telling what might have happened now, but luckily the concern passed out of Aunt Polly's face, and she came to Tom's relief without knowing it. She said, "Shh! It's that dreadful murder. I dream about it most every night myself. Sometimes I dream it's me that done it. Mary said she had been affected much the same way. Sid seemed satisfied. Tom got out of the presence as quick as he plausibly could, and after that he complained of toothache for a week and tied up his jaw every night. He never knew that Sid lay nightly watching and frequently slipped the bandage free and then leaned on his elbow listening a good while at a time, and afterwards slipped the bandage back to its place again. Tom's distress of mind wore off gradually, and the toothache grew irksome and was discarded. If Sid really managed to make anything out of Tom's disjointed mutterings, he kept it to himself. It seemed to Tom that his schoolmates never would get done holding inquests on dead cats, thus keeping his trouble present to his mind. Sid noticed that Tom never was coroner at one of these inquiries, though it had been his habit to take the lead in all new enterprises. He noticed, too, that Tom never acted as a witness, and that was strange, and Sid did not overlook the fact that Tom even showed a marked aversion of these inquests, and always avoided them when he could. Sid marveled, but said nothing. However, even inquests went out of vague at last and ceased to torture Tom's conscience. Every day or two during this time of sorrow, Tom watched his opportunity and went to the little grated jail window and smuggled such small comforts through to the murderer as he could get hold of. The jail was a trifling little brick den that stood in a marsh at the end of the village, and no guards were avoided for it. Indeed, it was seldom occupied. These offerings greatly helped to ease Tom's conscience. The villagers had a strong desire to tar and feather Injun Joe and ride him on a rail for body snatching, but so formidable with his character that nobody could be found who was willing to take the lead in the matter, so it was dropped. He had been careful to begin both of his inquest statements with the fight without confessing the grave robbery that preceded it. Therefore, it was deemed wisest not to try the case in the courts at present. And then that was the end of the chapter. Great chapter. You know, it shows Tom's conscience catching up to him. I like the scene, you know, um, where Duff Potter, I think his name is. Let me just look it up. Muff Potter comes up and you know, actually confesses. I didn't expect that to happen. I expected like for a few chapters we weren't gonna. It was just gonna be. It wasn't gonna be known that it was him. People were gonna be questioning about it, but I guess they went right into it. I was actually pretty surprised about that. So I thought this was a great chapter. It showed that Tom's conscience just was getting the best of him. He was getting guilty, and I liked it. And how Sid kind of is getting suspicious about it. I think it's a great chapter. So overall, this chapter I thought was fantastic. But that's pretty much it for this video, guys. Thank you guys for watching. Please make sure to subscribe to my CM Brothers channel because I post content on there as well. And make sure to subscribe to this channel for more content. And that's pretty much it, guys. Talk to you later.